How's it going, guys? Yes. Good morning, Pastor Julian. Let me tell you something about myself before we talk about the message today. You remember when you were like in high school and you had a test, like you had a final test. I don't know if you ever had that kind of nightmare that you study so hard, and the nightmare you get there and the school's empty, like you missed the test. You remember, have you had that? Or like you were a day late or something happened, you forgot So a preacher, I have a preacher's nightmare. And you may not know what that is, and I had it 2 nights ago, and that's why I'm sharing. And I talk to other pastors. Sometimes they have it, sometimes they don't. And the nightmare is like this. It's like you show up to church, and it's time for you to preach, and you can't find your Bible. Really, or microphone doesn't work, or you show up, there's nobody there. And so 2 nights ago, I'm showing up, there's a church, we're like having church outside, and the worship team is going, I'm trying to find parking, I can't find parking for nothing. And I'm like, I'm gonna be late, and the worship team are like, come on, hurry, we're finishing it. And I find parking, I get there, where's my Bible? My Bible disappeared and vanished. Anyways, that's the preacher's nightmare. Had that 2 nights ago, so pray for me. Now, we started this series called The Church I See for a couple of reasons. We want to go back to the basics. Starting 2023, why not start and reflect about some basic things about life, about our faith, and go back to that. And so 2 weeks ago, we talked about, wouldn't it be awesome if we started the year making God first in our hearts again. Making God first in our hearts again. And going back to that place that maybe you had it at one point, or if you never had it, maybe have it for the first time. That is, man, you wake up and your relationship with God is alive and it's real. You feel like the closeness of God and the friendship of God, and that's how we wanted to start the year. And by the way, these are not New Year's resolutions, because New Year's resolutions, I feel like there are a lot of like behavior modification that we're trying to force good things on ourselves. I'm all talking about the heart here. I want us to go to God with our hearts and go, God, would you help me? I want to make you first in my life again, the way I used to. And then last week we talked about that the church is a family. What is the church I see? And the church that God sees is a church that we're a family, like we know one another. That the church is a different environment than most environments that we go to. Like when you go to the supermarket, God doesn't expect you to be family with everybody that works in the supermarket. God doesn't expect us to be family with the Starbucks we go to, but it's a different environment. God wants us to not only attend here as if we're not attending like we attend the movie theater, that we go and we, eat overpriced popcorn and then we leave and it's, no, God made us for connection, and not only connection to Himself, but also connection with one another. And that's what we talked about last week. And this week I want to shift gears. There's a saying here at OB1 that we're a family, but we're not just a family, we're a family on mission. That there is an aspect of Christianity that we're involved with one another, loving one another, praying for each other, and helping one another. And we talked about last week more than 100 times in the New Testament, we saw there's one another's that are found in the Bible. But we're not just a family, we're a family that we're accomplishing something. We're a family that we're doing something for God individually, but also doing something for God collectively. And that's the point of our conversation. So I'm going to rewind our lives because I'm going to talk about the meaning of life here today. The meaning of life, Pastor? Like, are you crazy? Nobody knows the meaning of life. So yeah, we're going to talk about the meaning of life. And there's a new trend Like, have you ever asked, like, Siri, what's the meaning of life? Have you done that? And you can talk to robots nowadays. Do you know that there's many websites out there because artificial intelligence is a thing now, and you can go on websites and you can chat with robots. Have you done that? Have you? It's crazy. Like I went to one and I said, hey, what's the meaning of life? And she didn't know, or he didn't know, I don't know, right? A robot. Anyways, but you can go and you can say things like, hey, tell me, out of all the planets, which one's the biggest, which one's the best, and it replies to you, like, and it types right in front of you. It's really, really cool. So we're going to talk about the meaning of life, which is things that robots don't know, but we do. And then we're going to shift gears, and then we're going to talk about the meaning of our faith. The meaning of our faith. So let me start with the meaning of life. The meaning of life, it's right in the Bible, and it's found, I think the simplest place that we can find is in Colossians 1:16. And it's talking about God, and it says, all things have been created through God, and they're for God. That everything's been created by God, and He created for Himself, for a relationship. We were created for relationship, a relationship with God and relationship with others. And so if you didn't know the meaning of life, and psychology is finding that out. Psychology is saying, in different words, psychology is saying we were created for connection. That's what the Bible's been saying a long time ago. Like, you're created by God and for God. And that's why when we come to God through Jesus, that's when life begins to make sense. You remember that? It's like, I remember me, thinking about the meaning of life was to find happiness. And it's not to find happiness. We're looking for God. We don't know that we're looking for God. We're like, because we can try to look for happiness. And I did it, okay? I done that. Have a shirt to prove it, right? It's like that's the meaning of life, to be happy. It is then, okay, I'm a surfer. I'm like a 20-year-old surfer in San Diego. So it's to travel and surf good waves. Then I did that, and 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 I did that. It's like, what? Okay, so it's not found in geographical places. It's not found in the best waves. Then you think like, oh, it's human love. What if I find the perfect person? Which is the funniest thing that we do when we're 20. The perfect person? Does that even exist? Like, come on. Like, anyways, so then we think we're going to find that happiness in human relationships, and then we whatever, you have one, and fall in love twice, and then you're like, no, it's not, and it's not. We're looking for God. And when we find God through Jesus, and that miracle happened, boom, life begins to make sense. And that is the meaning of life. So far, so good? We were created by God and for a relationship for God. Now, and so if you're new here at OB1, you're exploring your faith, we want to help you do that. And so let us know. And so now, but then what happens is, here's what happens. That happens. We're on fire for God. We have the peace that passes understanding for the first time that drugs didn't give you, parties didn't give you, human love didn't give you. You have the peace of the Lord in your heart, and you have the joy of the Lord that gives us strength, and we're on fire. And we're on fire. My roommate, I told him about Jesus, and he gives his life to Jesus. I kid you not, this guy's calling people, and when people don't, pick up the phone, there was a thing back in those days called an answering machine. He would talk to the answering machine about Jesus. He would go like, hey, I don't know who's going to pick up this message, but let me tell you, Jesus changed my life. Whoever you're listening to this message. This is no coincidence that you're listening to this message. Come to Jesus. He would do stuff like that. He would evangelize the answering machine. He was on fire for God. But then what happens is, here's the message here today. Something happens. Something happens, and then we lose the fire, and it becomes boring, and it becomes dull. It becomes like, and then we lose our purpose. And it happens to all of us. It happens to all of us. And so this message, what is the meaning now? Not life, we talked about that. The meaning of Christianity is the topic of our conversation. Because if we lose this one piece, I can guarantee you, your Christianity and my Christianity will become dull, stale, and boring, and it can happen to all of us. And maybe that's where you're at today. And I'm so glad you're here today. So what is the meaning of Christianity? Here's the meaning, and that's why we miss it so much. Hint, hint, it's in the word, meaning. It means we're going to find meaning again when we become a means to an end. What's the meaning of my faith? What's the meaning of my relation? When you, Julian, when you become a means to an end. And here's why, that's why we miss it, family. We miss it. And all of us do it, okay? I'm not saying I don't do it, I'm better than you. No, all of us do it. Here's why we miss it. We think a lot about the end, but we don't pay attention to becoming a means to an end. Let me tell you what we do, all of us. You go like, you're in school and you're like, I can't wait to graduate and be maybe the top of my class. That's an end. There's nothing bad with that. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's an end. Then we go like, I can't wait to find a great job and love my job, but that's an end. And then we go, then I can't wait to buy a car. You know, now my first job, I can sell my college car and have a real car, but that's an end. And then we go like, now I want to buy a house. There's nothing wrong with any of that. We all do it, but that's another end. We're going to find meaning when we're starting to ask the question not what am I here for? Because that's the question of meaning that we ask, right? We ask, what am I here for, God? What am I here for, God? We're going to find meaning when we start asking the question, who am I here for? Who, God, who do you want to bless through me? And that's why we miss it. It's hiding in plain sight, family. It's right there. But we think so much about the end that we forget that to find meaning, we're going to have to go and become a meaning to an end. God, and that's why we miss it, because we think a lot about ourselves. You did it about 5 times just in this service, and I did it too. How did we do it? We like, Pastor Brandon's going, hey, we're going to have a celebration night, and we're all like, okay, what's in it for me? Hey, there's going to be free food, and you're like, okay, I'm there. Right? We all do it. We all do this. But when we start to think like, man, it's instead of just going to the job, God, who do you want to bless in this job through me? That's when we're starting to find the meaning again. Use me, God. And so if we see that pattern, we can see this pattern in the life of Jesus. Like think about this. Jesus was a means to an end. That's why he lived a meaningful life. God had a plan. God's plan was to save the world. How? Through forgiveness. There was this separation between God and man. He's a perfect God. We're imperfect people. There's this separation. And so through forgiveness, He's like, I'm going to forgive the whole world. Through forgiveness, now Jesus is going to pave the way so that people can go back to God through the cross, through forgiveness. It's not through religion. It's not through check boxes. It's not through good works. It's not through any of that. It's through Jesus. Because Jesus died for me, He died for us. Now we can be forgiven. Now the relationship with God can be restored. Now Jesus was a means to an end. Are you seeing this? The end was us coming back to God. So let's read it in Luke 2:49. We're going to read a couple of passages just to show you that He was a means to an end. And when he was a teenager, he gets lost, and mom and dad are looking for him. And he says, why are you searching for me? He asked. Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house? Other translations, I think they do a better job. Other translation says, Jesus said, I had to be about my Father's business. God has some business to do. And I am going to do for Him because I am a means to an end. And then in Luke 19, it says the following. The Son of Man came. Why did Jesus came? Why did He come to the world? He came to seek and save the lost. If there's any area in our lives that are lost, if you feel lost, if relationships are lost, if hope is lost, if there's so much pain and wound in your heart that you feel that a piece of your heart is lost, if there's anything lost in your life, come to Jesus, because He came just for that, to seek and to save those who feel like their pieces, or they're lost, or pieces in their heart are lost. And so He came to seek and save the lost. But then He also, when He's hanging out, here's the crazy part. Here's the crazy part of religion. And that's why we never want to become religious. Never, ever. You pray like this every day. God, I want to love You and not become a religious pain in the neck. Did you guys watch The Office? Anybody The Office? Office? What's the name of that lady in The Office? Angela. I tell people, don't be an Angela. There's one of the characters in the office. She's the Christian, judging everybody, being a pain in the neck. And she's the one cheating. And she's the one cheating. She's staying with Dwight, hooking up with Dwight and hooking up with her fiancé. She's a pain in the neck. And we don't want to be Christians that are pain in the neck. Okay, we want to be the messengers of God's love and God's forgiveness and God's grace that He came to seek and save, to seek and help. And so now Jesus is hanging out with a bunch of what? A bunch of sinners. Why? Why? Because He came for that reason, to seek and save those who need saving. And then what the religious people are doing? They're judging Jesus. Jesus. Do you see Jesus? He's hanging out with sinners. That was the whole meaning. That was the whole point. So you want Jesus to come to seek and save those who are lost, but you want Jesus to avoid the lost? Like you religious people, you have been doing? No, it's the whole point. It's the whole meaning. So they're judging Jesus, and here's how Jesus answers. Beautiful. So they're all in Matthew's house. This is known in the Bible as the Matthew's party, because this guy Matthew, he's so blown away. He's so blown away that Jesus said, follow me. Me? Follow you, Jesus? Nobody likes me. Nobody likes Matthew. You know why? Matthew's a tax collector. You know what tax collectors do? They betray their people, all of their people. So if you're a Jew, you become a tax collector to the Jews, and that means I am going to serve Rome. I am going to backstab all of you. I'm going to overcharge taxes for all of you, because I'm thinking about me. And so all the people were like, really? You backstabber? And now Jesus is calling the backstabber to follow him? What the heck? This guy, yeah, that's the meaning. He came to seek and save those who need it. And so they're all judging Jesus, and Matthew throws a big party. He's like, bro, there's hope for us. There's hope for us. Jesus, there's hope for us. Come. The religious people, they avoid us. There's this one guy that he loves us. Come. I'm going to throw a party in my house. Show up, 6:30. Ring the doorbell with your elbows. What do you mean? Don't come empty-handed, okay? Like, ring the doorbell. Okay, all right, it's a potluck. All right, you got that. Now, they're all there. A bunch of sinners and tax collectors. They're all there. Now, let's read it. After all that introduction. And then the religious saw this, the religious people, the Pharisees, and they asked his disciples, why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners? On hearing this, Jesus said, it's not the healthy who needs doctor, but the sick. But go on and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice, for I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. I did not come to people that think that they're perfect. I came for the people that know that they are imperfect. It's just like a doctor, family. It's just like a doctor. The doctor's right there. The doctors, they don't go out on the streets like, hey, you should go to the doctor. We got to realize, man, I am sick. I got to go to the doctor. We got to acknowledge the need, and then we have to do something about that. The first thing is acknowledge, I need a doctor. With Jesus, I need help. I need salvation. I need peace. I need purpose. I need hope for those who acknowledge the need and come to the doctor, Jesus. They will find the healing that they're looking for. That's why Jesus is saying, he's saying everyone's sick spiritually. Everyone needs salvation. Everyone needs hope, but not everyone acknowledges it. I did not come if you think you have it all together, but I came for those who know that they need God. They need Jesus. They need forgiveness, and they need hope. Why? Jesus was doing all of that in a party full of sinners and tax collectors. Because that was the point. He was being a means to an end. He came to seek and save those who are lost. Are you following me now? And that's why we miss it. That's why we miss meaning. And that's why we miss purpose, because we're going to find meaning and purpose in our faith now. In our faith, when we stop asking the question, what's in it for me? Because the answer to that question is on the other side of that bridge. It's on the other side. It's what is in it for others through me. And that's why we miss it. Because we're constantly, all of us, what's in it for me? 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 And so then we miss it. It's hiding in plain sight. But our human nature, our flesh and our selfishness, we just want to be the beneficiaries of everything. And Jesus says, but you're going to find meaning when you're just being the shovel, not the hole. Are you following me? When you become a tool, when you become God's tool in the world. And that's why we miss it. We miss it. And that's why Jesus said it's all connected. See, it's all connected. Jesus said, the Son of God came not to be served, but to serve. Not to be served, but to serve. Why? Because when you and I, we are being, conduits, when we are, being the bridge, and when we are serving others, that's where we find meaning. That's why Jesus said it's better to give than to receive. But we miss it. Why we miss it? Because we never try it. Oh, it's a beautiful thing. Oh, better to give than to receive. Good for you, Jesus. Yeah, you know? But that's why we miss the meaning. And here's what happens. I'm going to go back to where I started. And then Christianity and our faith gets boring. It gets boring. We're like, man, Pastor Julian, there he goes again. We're family on a mission. Up in and out. Church for imperfect people. And then, heard all the sermons. Pastor Steve talking about the check engine light in his heart. And then we start, you know what we start doing? We go like, something is wrong with my faith, because it's boring. We all do it. And something's wrong with my faith. Something's wrong. And it's got to be someone else's fault, right? It's never our fault, right? And so it's, the church will be one, man. They were on fire. Now they're not anymore. You know, coffee is a little weak. And anyways, so then and then what we do is, here it is. And that's why Christians change churches every 3 to 5 years. You know what they're doing? They're changing a Band-Aid instead of talking about the wound. And what's hurting us and what hurts us is that we lose the meaning. We lose the purpose. And we become a hammer that really wants to hammer nails, but we become a hammer that's being used as a doorstop. And it gets frustrated being a hammer being used as a doorstop because it lost its meaning. It lost its purpose. And so it's hiding in plain sight, and then we get bored, and then we change churches. And that church is good. I tell you, you shop around. There's great churches in San Diego. And so you're going to find a great one too. But like 2 to 3 years from now, you're like, I don't know about this church. The pastor, coffee's kind of strong. Obi-Wan was weak. Here's strong. And so but if we find the meaning now, that's why I want you to get this. I hope you see these messages like, making God first. The church is a family. Now, let's live lives that are meaningful and lives with purpose. It has nothing to do with just you today. It has everything with your faith from now on for the rest of your lives. If you're getting bored in your faith, I'm telling you, probably there's a good chance that you stop living your meaning and living your purpose, and we miss it. And so, here's the question now: how do we find a meaning? Because my purpose may be different than your purpose, right? I may be a cell phone and you may be a hammer. Different purposes. And how do we find that? Again, I want to go back to principles, and then I want to make it practical and give you guys handlebars for you to act on it. Let's go back to principles. We're going to find meaning when we're asking not what am I here for, but who am I here for? And we can ask that at work. We can ask that at school. We can ask that in our neighborhood, in the city, in the church that we're in. Who am I here for? Who am I here to help? Who am I here to use my gifts? Who am I here to bless? That's when we're going to start going to work with meaning, going to school with a purpose, going to church with a purpose. Who am I here for? And then we cannot disassociate or disconnect or divorce meaning with service. And so it's going to cost you, and it's going to cost me, but it's going to be priceless. What's going to cost you? It's going to cost your time. Who am I here for? Okay, I'm here for this group of people. Okay, you have to volunteer, you have to show up, and when we are volunteering and giving, we're giving our time, we're giving our most precious thing, that is, we're giving life. And this message is not about volunteering, family. This message is for you to find the meaning and the purpose of your life that has to do with other people, and it has to do with serving. It's all connected. I'm not trying to recruit more volunteers. I'm trying to make you a Christian that's never bored again with your faith ever, because you're living a meaningful life. Are you seeing this? Hope you see my heart here. And so, who am I here for? It has to do with serving. It has to do becoming a means to an end, being the shovel, not the hole, and all of that. So now let's talk about some practical steps. How can you find your meaning? What does your heart get emotional about? What does your heart like? You're like, man, like, you're always thinking about that group of people. You're going like, are teenagers doing okay? How are single women in San Diego doing? And many times it's related to our greatest pain. Because when we went through a great pain, sometimes we don't want others to go through that same pain that we did, and so that burns in our hearts. We go like, how the kids are doing at OB1? Kids, how are they doing? You see, so pay attention to what's your emotions, what makes your heart cry, and also pay attention to your complaints, because your complaints will reveal your heart as well. And I'm not talking about politics here for a minute, right? I'm talking about like you come to me and you say, Pastor, what is your church doing for single women in San Diego? And I go like, we're not doing anything right now. I knew it. I can't believe this church is not doing anything for single women. Every complaint is revealing our hearts. But here's the hard part. It's revealing that's not for somebody else to do it. It's for us to do it, for you to do it, because it's burning your heart. Are you following me? I have a couple here at church. They're like, what are we doing for married couples? I'm like, right now we're not doing much. They're like, we want to do it. There you go. That's the heart. So when you start paying attention to your complaints, start also thinking, ooh, God's asking me to do that. Because with the complaint should be like this unbuttoning of this thing, because you're going to start rolling up the sleeves and you're going to go like, what do you do for single women in San Diego? I'm going to go, nothing. When are you starting? Ooh, I don't want that, Pastor. I don't know enough. I'm kind of weak in my faith. I don't have enough time. I have grandkids and kids. I have this great idea, Pastor, for you to do it. Nah. God called me to have preacher nightmares. So pay attention to that. And then if you're still not too sure how to start, find an organization that's doing that thing and join them. Because sometimes it's hard to start by yourself. Like, oh, how do I start? Like, I have a heart for that, but I don't know how to start. Let me find, you do like, let's say your heart burns for, let me give you a layup. Like in basketball, sometimes there's an easy layup. You're right there by yourself, ball's in your hand, and the basket's right here, right? Easy. And God knows my heart, it has nothing to do with OB1. An easy layup is to find one of those ministries right here at OB1 for you to start serving. If your heart burns for kids, we talk to kids about Jesus every Sunday. Teenagers, same thing. Missions, music, security, prayer, elderly, anti-human trafficking, guest services, cafe, and there's more. I think this is a cool thing for us to be proud of our church, that there are people doing these things. They're not, I promise you, the pastors are not doing all of these things. People are doing all of these things. And it's an easy layup until you find really your purpose, your individual meaning to your faith. You can start serving in these easy layup opportunities. I feel like, I'm going to just talk about me now. I feel every Christian should go to church at least one Sunday a month, not thinking about themselves. Is that asking too much? It's just one a month. And then see where he goes. One Sunday that you're going to have actually a job description. And the job description is going to have to do with helping people and loving people and helping them in one way or another. That's when we're becoming a means to an end. If you just come here like we go to the movies just to watch the show, it's going to get boring. It's going to get boring. And so there's an opportunity. And if you need help discovering the next slide, if you need help discovering your purpose, we want to help you. And so that's at the bottom of your message notes as well. If you want to text discover to the number on the screen, on your notes, we want to help you discover. And again, I promise you, it has nothing to do with Obi-Wan. It has everything to do with your faith, everything to do with your heart, and everything to do with you. Christians cannot be bored. Come on. I want you to live a meaningful life and a meaningful faith life as well. Because when we're there, it's not going to be boring ever, 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 ever again. You're going to show up, let's say, to kids' ministries, and the little kid, the 6-year-old, is going to go like, oh, thanks for being here. Like, you're talking to her, talking to him, and he's like, tell me about God. And you're like, oh, okay, all right. Now you're having to pray. Now there's nothing boring about that. Now you have butterflies. Oh, I didn't have the answer. I'm going to have to talk to Pastor Brandon now, get some answers. I'm going to have to Google when I get home. What's the meaning of life? Why the sky is blue, you know? The 6-year-old just asked you that. Oh, you're like calling Pat. Now it's exciting. Now you're not like, come, let's see how the movie goes today. Now the jersey's on. Now jersey's on. You're Googling why the sky is blue, or if you're helping teenagers, and now it has grips to it. Now Christianity has teeth, the good kind, and so that's what I desire for you. Let's start 2023 loving God, making Him first in our lives. Let's start 2023 making our church family. And let's start 2023 being a means to an end. Because we want to have a meaningful and purposeful faith, not a stale one. Would you close your eyes? Let's pray together.